Google Developers Live. My name is Arun Nagarajan, and we're here live from the New York studios. Today's topic is AppScript Crash Course and the script editor. We're going to focus a lot on the script editor. But before I get started, I want to introduce other presenters.
Hey everyone, my name is Kalyan Reddy. I usually do the Apps Unscripted series, but today I'm going to give you some neat tips and tricks on using the script editor and maximizing productivity there. And as you might know, most of us on the AppScript team work out of the New York office here. But today we have a special guest on our team from the Mountain View office. Let her introduce herself.
Thanks, Kalyan. I'm Carrie Rowe. I'm a program manager on the Apps DevRel team, and I work with these guys, so I'm really excited to sit out here with them and hear more about what they do. And my job is to help make developers successful. So implementing programs to help reach out to you guys and communicate to you about our products and get your feedback. So if you guys have any ideas about how we can better interact with you, please post on the community page or reach out to me on Google+. I'd love to hear your feedback.
That's right. That's really important feedback. Google Developers Live itself is a program, so
yes,
that's why she's on it, promoting it. So let's get started. So the Crash Course series is all about taking one aspect of writing AppScript apps and just going really deep into it. So even if you're a programmer that's been working with AppScript for a couple of years now, we hope that you'll have something that you can take away from these series, but it's more focused around just from the ground up, explain a lot of the capabilities of a particular feature. And today it's all about the script editor. Should we get started? All right, so the very first thing that I'll talk about is how do you get to the script editor? So obviously, I think the easiest to remember URL in the world is script.google.com. Really easy to remember, really easy to type. It brings you to the script editor directly. So when I say script editor, just so everybody is on the same page, it's the IDE, the Integrated Development Environment, where you write and run your scripts from. So that's one of the easiest way to get to the script editor. We also have the ability to inject the create script option within Google Drive. So this is actually a pretty nice thing that you can do. So right now, if you click on the create menu, you have the native Google Apps formats available, and then any third-party apps you can install. We have Google Apps Script available as an app that you can install as well. So what you can do is say connect apps to Drive and search for Apps Script, and search for that. And that should, hopefully the Wi-Fi catches up here. And that should bring back an AppScript app that I can hit connect on. And that'll install a new option under your create menu for script. So I like to use this because it's actually a really nice way to put a script in a particular folder. So if you're within a folder already where you keep your scripts and you create a script within that, it'll be managed properly. So let's go with this route. And that, again, brought us to the script editor. And in fact, you can see in the URL that the folder ID is specified, so you know it's working. That's great. So let me talk a little bit about the script editor itself. So the very first thing that you see when the script editor comes up is the welcome screen. I know a lot of you probably turned this off, but I do find this useful in some scenarios where if I have a recent project that I want to immediately open up, or if I like to use a template. So on the left-hand side is a set of templates that we have to help you get started. So this doesn't change the type of script or create any property changes about the code itself. All it does is it seeds your script editor with a bunch of useful snippets that we think will help you get started. So if I, for instance, select the calendar template, all that's doing is it's going to create the project that we already have and populate it with a bunch of code that we think will be useful for you.
Right, like every script isn't like this is a calendar script, this is a Drive script. It's not like that. You could have permissions granted based on what services you're using on a script basis, but this just seeds the code into the script editor.
That's right, yeah. So as you probably know, most of the impressive scripts that are out there oftentimes use calendar along with spreadsheet data, along with a file in Drive or something along those lines. So in this case, we're just giving you a bunch of code that if you're not interested in reading the documentation, you can start looking at some samples and get going. Excuse me. So let me show one last thing, and then I'll talk to you about the next set of things we'll show. So in Drive itself, one of the things you can do is once you've created a script, you can go into the settings, go to Manage Apps, and you're able to actually filter all your scripts by going to Google Apps Script from the Manage App option, and then say View all the files this app created. This allows you to see all the scripts very quickly. So it's a really nice way to kind of filter and look at all your scripts in a simple search. And then I'll also do a quick walkthrough of all the different options within the script editor. So we've actually done a really nice job, I think, to make the script editor feel familiar to other editors you may have worked in. Obviously, it's still running in a browser, so it's very portable, and it's meant to be lightweight and quick. But we're trying to make it very familiar. So you have your standard file edit menu, where you can kind of do basic things around the file and the project. You have the list of files on the left. You cannot have more than one file with the same name, so we take care of that kind of validation here. And then you can actually have multiple tabs open, which is great when you're writing a fairly sophisticated program. And then these are your standard formatting and deployment and debugging options. So being able to indent, unindent, save the file. This is a deployment option to the web as a web app. These are triggers. We'll get to that in a second. And then these are the debugging and the running icons. So you'll end up using that a lot. And this is the list of functions that we have parsed out from your code that you can execute. So that's sort of the very quick overview of the script editor. Now I think Kalyan's going to take over and talk about one of his favorite features.
Yeah, so if you're anything like me, you hate taking your hands away from a keyboard because it just wastes so much time.
Spoken like a true engineer.
Yep, exactly. It wastes so much time, grabbing the mouse and then trying to use the UI to do something that you know is there and you just want to get to it. So I have a couple of handy shortcuts that I use on a day-to-day basis when I'm writing scripts. So maybe if you don't know, you might find these useful. The first thing is actually autocomplete, which is the most handy shortcut I think anyone likes here. So basically, you can see it in here. It's content assist. But in action, you can see it. Let's say we have calendar app, get calendar by ID here. If you want to do something else with calendar app, you can actually just get to it by doing that shortcut combination, control space, and then you have all of these choices, which are our top level services that you can interact with using AppScript.
This is a great way to just keep up with what are available services.
Right, like I haven't typed anything yet, but you already get this list. So then let's go type C for calendar right there, and then you can complete that. When you press the dot, you get a submenu drilling into that top level service, and you can say, let's say I want to create a calendar, and then you can give it some name. So very easily, without doing anything, without going to our developer pages and looking at the functions.
Even though our developer pages are great, I think this
I
think this is a really nice way to write code.
Exactly. Let's see. After that, let's get into some keyboard shortcuts that you might not know. So one shortcut is let's name it something. I love calling things test script.
Easiest to find those, right?
I have a billion test scripts in my drive right now, and I have no idea what any of the old ones do. Okay, so let's see. What are some of my favorites? The one thing that I love is I write some code, I save it, I just want to see what it does. It's the run. All right, so
there's another one here with some code that you can run quickly.
There we go.
Yeah.
So this is good code that we can just show. Let's say we want to run a process inbox function. I select it, I make some edits here, whatever, save it. If you're using a Mac, it's Command R. If you're using anything else, it's Control R. So that does not reload the page like the behavior is in just a regular web browser for other websites, but it actually runs the function that's currently selected within this function box here. And as you can see, the yellow bar came up saying the function was run. In conjunction with this, another useful chain command is command enter or control enter if you use other IDEs, and this brings up the logging output. So what I usually do is I do control R, control enter, and then quickly see what's there to log. So actually, if you want to chain that even more, command S to save it. As you know, this is the same from other things. Command
so you're saying you'll write code, you'll use autocomplete to write your code.
Exactly.
Command S, Command R, Command Enter.
All this is part of the quest to become an AppScript Jedi Master.
Exactly.
Well, just in general, doing more with
impress your friends.
Yes, that.
Yes. I talk about this at parties. So anyway, so if you see this logging output here, we'll get into the explicit details of Logger later, but this is generally how you can get to the log very quickly. Okay, another feature that we have, you might have noticed this button, Arun mentioned it briefly just before. It's the auto indent feature. So if you have it turned on, then you might notice that you can't press the tab key to indent things like normal because it's handling this for you. And if you add something else, it'll automatically indent it starting at the same spot. If you turn that off, you can, well, here, let me show some other behavior here. So let's say, well, let's try some real code here. Var
Caps lock is on.
var x equals 2, let's say. If you want to fix that quickly, you just make a selection and press tab, and then it'll make your code pretty.
And I find that when I'm copy pasting samples or code from another place, I end up needing that a lot.
Right, it's all messed up, so you do Command A or Control A, select all, and then just do tab to fix that. Now, if you don't use this auto indent, if you have that turned off, the behavior is slightly different. So when you do have something like this that you want to fix, you have to do Shift Tab to fix it. So instead of just tab, you have to do Shift Tab, because otherwise you can use tab just to do regular indents.
So what do you have? Do you have
I don't use the auto indent.
You don't?
No.
Oh.
I just like, if I need to indent something, Control A, Shift Tab, it's quick enough. Here, let's. The next thing is for variables that you've defined earlier in your code. A useful way to complete this here we have logging.log thread.count. Let's say we want to do that easily. We already defined thread count earlier on. You can do thread, and then, so Alt / is a shortcut to do completions from your code. So as I keep clicking it, it keeps iterating through everything you've defined. You've defined thread ID earlier, you've defined thread count, threads. It's iterating through all of these that you've defined, so you can quickly do it.
So you no longer need to decide between short names that are easy to type versus descriptive names that are easy to read.
So it's actually good programming practice to not name everything X, Y, Z. Actually give them some descriptive names. And so even if your name has like 4 words, camel case together, you can quickly just get to that, and have people who are sharing the script with you and managing it in the future, have them understand it.
And what was the shortcut again? It was Alt?
So Alt /.
Alt /.
Yeah.
And is this one of the ones we list in the menu?
This is. So if you go to the edit menu, if you ever forget,
this is
word completion.
Word completion
is what it is here.
All right. And Content Assist is our content, the APIs.
Exactly.
All right.
And another really, really handy one is, let's say you want to quickly comment a line of code. You can do Control /, and then you can automatically toggle the comments on and off. And this is also listed in the edit menu here in toggle comment.
And where does your cursor have to be? Anywhere in that line?
Anywhere on the line is fine. And if you have a multiple line selection, like I have 3 lines here, you do the same comment, all of the lines
That's a good trick.
Are done. Yeah. So
that's even faster than using the multi-line comments, I think.
Yeah.
Because you'd have to move your mouse
Yeah,
around.
Exactly. You have to create a new line up there, down there, /.
No wonder you're always typing faster than me.
Exactly. You got to know all these things, man. Let's see. Another feature that's very common to other IDEs is the undo redo functionality. So if you do Command Z on the Mac, you can undo. Command Y is redo. Control Z, Control Y, I believe.
All of this works on a Chromebook, and
yeah. It works on everything. The actual shortcut, the modifier key might be different. It's Command on a Mac, but if you go to the edit menu, you can see what the actual modifier
correct
is.
one. Yep.
Right.
Good.
So it'll be adjusted for your system, and also. This, like Arun said, is meant to be lightweight, so you can write some great scripts really quickly. But we do want to add some functionality that's missing from like other IDEs, like Eclipse that you might use, or even more like Vim. Yeah, I don't want to get there, but I love using Vim. So if there's some functionality that you want us to add, like some new keyboard shortcuts, then please put a feature request on our issue tracker, and we'll enter that in the system. And if enough people like it, we'll definitely be introducing that into the script editor.
Great. Thank you very much for that. So now what we've done so far is giving you tricks to allow you to write your code really fast. Now the time is to come to run the script and find out what you've screwed up, right? So that's where this feature called the debugger comes in. So debugger is a concept that a lot of you that have programmed on other platforms would be very familiar with. It's where you can run your code and pause the execution and then inspect the state and variables and then potentially run it a little bit more, pause it again, and compare things. So the debugger gives you this deep insight into the execution of the program. And even though Google Apps Script is a cloud-based scripting language, we've given you the debugger capability that runs within the browser. So this is actually pretty incredible to see. So let's say a quick demo of this. So I'll use the same function here called the process inbox, which is on a test inbox. It's just going to iterate through all my inbox threads and log the messages, the first message subject. So let's say, what if I want to ensure that this, let's say something is breaking at about the 10th thread or something along those lines. What I can do, instead of hitting the run command, which Kalyan was using Command R, I could hit this little bug symbol, the universal symbol for bug. I'm sure like in the next 10 years this is going to get archaic, but no, we're still using floppy disks and bugs for important metaphors, so that's great. So I'll hit the debug button, and what happens now is, instead of the function just running in the regular mode, it runs it in a special mode, which is the debug mode. So what happened here, and you can see that the line that I clicked on was highlighted, and it pauses execution. I forgot to show you. You can just hit the gutter on the left-hand panel, and it turns on a red dot next to the line you want it to you want to break on. That's the word, the breakpoint. And there we have it. So what it essentially did here is it paused the execution of the code you wrote on the Google data centers and returned back the state your application is in. So you can see that the variables you have here are threads and message and I, which is the incrementer for the loop itself. So let's just take a look. I'm going to hit the continue step over function, which is the continue. So when I hit that, it's going to go back and start running the loop again, because we're now in the second item. So you can actually kind of walk through and you watch the line of code being highlighted. This is actually pretty impressive when you think about what kind of capability this gives you. So you're able to essentially run the code interactively from the script editor itself. And it's really nice to be able to say, OK, now I is incrementing appropriately. And for a complex app that may have multiple call stack items on the left, this becomes really powerful to observe and inspect.
Now, I don't know if you all caught that at home, but you can see here in the fourth line here that I is of type number, and then the value is in the third column. It was 0 in the first iteration of the loop because you started it at 0, and then it became 1 when Arun went to the next iteration of the loop.
That's right. Yeah, and you can, if you don't want to walk through every line, you can just hit continue debugging, and that'll go to the next time the breakpoint gets hit. So it'll come back, and now you can see that my message is now, it says add a profile photo. So that's the message it's picking up. And you can also look at a collection. So in this case, an arrays has Gmail thread objects in it. You can see that's not very useful in that hover we have here. But those are the things that you're able to really see pretty easily. And I end up using this quite frequently because I think this is a lot more, so it's a lot more powerful than just logging things. This can allow you to take a look at all the different objects in it as well. So if you have a string value, that you can really inspect that pretty quickly. Cool. So that's the basics of the debugger. I definitely urge you guys to take a look at these options to stop, and you can actually dive into a function as well. So if it's making a function call that you've written, you can use this option, which is step in, to go into your custom function. And there's some ways to, do the inheritance and the all the expanded objects of a collection as well. The stopping and pausing. Stopping really just stops execution. So now we're done. So we just iterated through 2 items and we decided to stop. So it's a nice way to, you can figure out if you know where the issue is, you don't need to wait till the app finishes for you to start fixing the bug. You can just stop it and write it right there.
Right, and sometimes later on you might be like Gmail app.sendmail. If you don't want to run all of those, you can just exit early.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so it's kind of a powerful tool that we end up using quite a bit to troubleshoot our own code. So I think it's we hope to have you guys use it.
You guys don't write code perfectly the first time?
No, unfortunately not.
I do. I don't know about
everyone. It's all the keyboard shortcuts, I assume. Now, this is great when you can, in fact, you've written an app that you are launching and running from the script editor. However, there are several cases where your code is invoked asynchronously, either from an event or from a web app. So in those scenarios, you can't, for the time being, you can't attach to that process and break a particular line at this point. So what you end up needing to do is you create a little wrapper function where you essentially mock the invocation. So these mock objects allow you to control the debugging experience like you would normally. So let's take a look at why you'd want that. So for instance, let's say I have I've published this web app. I'm going to manage versions. I already have one, I guess. And then I'm going to say deploy. Wi-Fi is being a little slow here. I'm going to deploy this version. And as you can imagine, there's a do-get function that's just returning a very simple output that's the message for the given index. So let's open up a new tab here. I'm going to go there. It's probably going to throw an error of undefined. So I'll say question mark index equal to 2.
So this is you passing parameters.
Yeah. So this is think of this as a very simple web app, and I'm passing in a parameter. And now let's say that, for instance, something breaks when index is 10. Again, something is not working correctly, and we want to debug it. So in order to debug this, when you come back to the script editor, the way you're able to debug do-get function is you have to sort of write a wrapper function from which you're launching do-get with the parameters packaged up as an object yourself. So it's a bit of a handheld process to create that object, but it's something that I think will really help you when you understand that, okay, so it's the same object that comes in from the invocation in the web app in a browser or another device. So this is what we'll do instead. Let's say we want to debug this. I can put a breakpoint now here for message, and I will use test do-get as my invocation. And when I hit the debug sign, let me zoom out a little bit, click on the bug again, resize it appropriately, and you can see that now I have my breakpoint in do-get with the appropriate parameter. So that's one of the really nice ways that you can debug even asynchronous invocations by creating these test harness mock functions that allow you to pretend as if your application is being invoked. Now, it's not just web apps. There's also tons of triggers and events we expose. Things like on-open, on-edit, even Google Forms. We launch a lot more events now. So
on-form submit.
On-form submit, yep. And you can see that this list is quite large. So there's a page in our documentation for understanding events. And you can see that under events and triggers. And you can see quite a number of items that we've listed there. And we actually document to you all the different object parameters that'll come to you. So you can see that if it's a clock event, you'll get e dot x, y, and z, these different properties. So with this knowledge, you can actually mock your own objects just like I've done here. For a web app, it's all parameters dot x, y, and z. For events, it's a bit more involved because there's a lot more objects, properties that we give you. So that's something to keep in mind. Allows you to debug much more effectively.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple other things that are interesting about the debugger. So the way debuggers work essentially is we pause the execution on our side and we send down the state of the application down to you, right? So that's pretty powerful stuff. There are certain things where we're unable to just pause execution and save state. There's a couple of things that we've documented. One of them is if you're asking for input. So if you have browser.messagebox or browser. I think the other one, I forget the other, inform or whatever the equivalent is. I'll use autocomplete. Browser.messagebox and input box. Very useful. Yeah. Yeah, it really saves a lot of room in my head memorizing these things. So when you have these sort of user input grabbing invocations, we're unable to serialize that state because we can't pick up where we left off if the user's in the middle of typing. So you'll see a message along the lines of continuations not allowed. I forget the exact message.
Unable to serialize continuations.
Yeah. And there's every now and then there's someone in the issue tracker bringing this issue back up. But for JDBC connections, which are these persistent database connections we make on behalf of you, and for browser UI interaction like message box and input box, we do not allow debugging around those functions.
Yeah, and in addition to that, there are certain things that you should be able to debug, and you might still be getting this error. And that's a bug on our part, so definitely report those kind of things. If it's not around the two that Arun mentioned, but something different, and you're still getting that unable to serialize continuation, that weird error, then report that to us, and then we can fix that as they come.
Sounds good. So hopefully you got a little sense for what the debugger is all about, and now Kalyan's going to take over and talk about some other features.
All right, so logging. I briefly touched on this before, but we'll go into a little more detail here. So logger.log is how you can get to the log. And if you want to just write a random string into your log, this is how you do it. So you get the string just by you're iterating on the threads object here, which you get from Gmail app by doing get in inbox threads, and you're extracting the first message subject of the thread, of this particular thread. And that string you can easily log by just going logger.log and then message. Now, when I run this process inbox function here, you can see that the log has a timestamp of when each particular entry was written to the log, in addition to the actual message. So these, more information about blah, 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 all of this stuff, I think this is everyone's test account, so nothing awesome here. But these are the subjects for all of the threads in Arun's inbox here. Very quick way when you're debugging your script. I mean, if you're going to have users running your script, they're not going to see this. No one in public side is going to see this, but this is for you. So if you're developing your script, you can quickly say, hey, what does this return? Let me just log it and find out.
So in a web app, this is console.log.
Yep.
And since this is running on the server side, we have to expose our own logger, which is what capital L logger is.
Right. So actually, you can, it's kind of hidden, I guess, but you can actually log within the do get and do post as well. If you're the person that's executing the web app and you're signed in, when you execute those functions and you go back to your script editor and you go into your logger, you'll see the logging output from there as well. You won't see it when other users run your script, but you do when you're developing it. It's very handy for like developing web apps just without going through all that pain. But there's another way to capture log output, which is once you've accumulated some things within the log, within a script execution, you can, in the logger bean, there's another method. You can do get log, which returns you a string of everything that you've logged to logger.
That's really cool. So
basically, what you can do is you can do Gmail app.send mail, and you can just send that as the body, the logger.getLog.
So at the end of an execution,
exactly,
or maybe in an exception try catch all the logs so far and send it out.
Exactly. So a lot of people do things like open a document and then append logs to the document instead. That kind of adds a little bit more latency to your script than is maybe necessary. This is a very lightweight way to, if you're running it in the script editor, you can just examine the logger. If you're not, then you can go check your email. It gives you more options there.
Cool.
And so another thing that you can do is you can do for formatting, instead of just having the simple method where you do logger.log and then pass it one string, there's an overloaded log method, and I have that as an example down here. So I have 3 variables here that I've poorly named.
Right, man.
So here we go. So one is just a number, the other one is a string, and then the other one is an object, which has first and second keys, and then appropriately has values. So I want to log all of these. I don't want to do, the value of A, close the quotes, plus the object, plus open quotes, and continue that. If you're familiar with other programming languages, you can do syntax like this, where you have one string that's unbroken, but where you want to replace certain values of the string with variables, you can do this %s syntax, where it actually takes that variable's value and puts it into the string when it's about to write the string. So here we have the same logger.log as before, but we've defined this string, and we're giving the parameters of the string. So I have 3 %s's here, and these correspond sequentially to A, B, and C. You can provide a variable number of arguments here, and you can likewise add in more %s's into your string. A %s means formatted as a string, so it'll convert this object.
It's like printf in C++.
It's like printf, or sprintf, or all the other variants.
And in fact, we have a utilities.format string as well now that we recently added, which has very similar.
Which mirrors the same syntax.
Very cool.
So let me just run this real quick and show you an example of that as well. So, saving code.
Can you see keyboard shortcuts?
I should. So anyway, this is the line that we logged. The value of A is 1, B is 2, and then C, as you can see, was an object, but it turned that object into a string and then enumerated all of its keys and printed it nicely.
Very cool.
All right, I think, something I almost forgot to mention, the execution transcript. So this is a feature that we added relatively recently, but people have been asking about how do I know, how long a particular script takes, because I might be getting timeout errors. I want to know how I can make my code more efficient. Where are the problems? Where are the bottlenecks? So a great way to find that out is to just look at the execution transcript. Before, you would have to do log a timestamp there. It's something more complex. But here, let's say we're running something like process inbox. We've run the function and we want to know, what's taking a long time. What did my code actually do? You can go to View and Execution Transcript here. And so this shows you exactly all of the calls that your code did. And as you can see here, you do get inbox threads, and then you do, this is within the loop, right? So you iterate through the first thread and call get first message subject, and then you log something. And then you get it for the second thread, and then you log something else. And you can see that it actually shows what would be actually logged instead of saying logger has been called again.
So you can see that the most expensive call here was the very first call.
Right, so just calling that API and getting it back took 1 second, and then from that point on you have the object and you're not making any more calls, so it's nearly instantaneous and you need to worry about it. And so this logging took a fraction of a second, etc. But if you had more function calls, I'm not sure if you have a good example ready to go here, but if you did have more complex calls, you can say driveapp.get all files and then enumerate through each file might be more expensive than a good example is when you do get inbox threads, you get all the threads in your inbox. If you were to do threads I.get message and then do operations on that, basically get message per each thread, that takes much longer than doing get inbox threads, get messages for threads. There's another method that takes an array of threads and returns a 2D array.
Like a batching option, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So just like with spreadsheets, that's something that you should look into.
Right, so execution transcript is a great way to analyze, oh man, this is taking way too long. How can I improve it?
Cool.
One more thing is find and replace within your script.
Request.
Very popular request, right. So now I already have threads ready to go. There's only one thread. So let's look for a var for some reason. So then you can quickly go and iterate.
So it actually moves around the focus. Very cool.
And you can actually drag this dialog around, just to see where in your script it is. Find and replace, obviously, it's very similar to other find and replace functionalities in other IDEs.
And if you have multiple files, that actually list those options here as well, so you can see, makes refactoring and other cleanup options pretty straightforward.
Right.
All right, so we're running short on time here. I'll show you a couple other quick things that I think are really important around libraries. I think libraries are a really nice way to organize your code, share code across different projects. In fact, just recently, our colleague Eric Kulita, he released a library that he put together based on Moment.js, which is an open source state parsing library that is very popular with JavaScript developers. And so let's just take a look at his Google Plus post. Now, he talked about, here's a library that he shared, and he gave us what's called the project key. So this is how libraries are brought in. So you can find your own project key by going to File, Project Properties. It's tucked away here. But if you want to bring in another project into your project as a library, you can go to Resources, Manage Libraries, and let's go copy this ID and paste this in here under Find a Library and hit Select. And there it brought in Moment is the title of the project, and then the identifier is what we wanted to autocomplete off of. So that's sort of the namespace for our particular project. And I'll just pick the static version for the time being, and I'll hit save. The development mode, we'll talk about that at a separate time. For now, we'll just keep it as a static version. I'll hit save. So now I get a nice message saying it's been updated. And what I can do now is type in moment dot, and I get autocomplete within the library that Eric has provided for me, which is really nice to not just be using autocomplete from our APIs, you can actually get autocomplete on your own APIs as well. So libraries are a great way to share and reuse code. A couple of other things that I think are really important to point out are, you saw this very quickly when I went into the project properties, is the concept of user properties and project properties. So user properties are essentially name value pairs that are sort of like cookies in a web browser, if you will. You can leave that, there's an API for it as well, and there's a UI for it. You can just say favorite color and you can say something like blue, and the next time you come and run the script for this user, you can say, what did I save for you as your favorite color? And this gives you that little storage space. And project properties are stored and shared across all users, essentially. It's the project level setting. And user properties are shared across all projects. So if you have multiple projects and they use the same user property key, you'll get the same value. So that's pretty useful a lot of times to write sort of personalized content so you remember what you did for the user. And here's the APIs for it, user properties dot, and you get the autocomplete. So it's pretty powerful in that regard. So I think I covered everything that I wanted. Let me look at my cheat sheet really quickly here. And we're running out of time anyway. But hopefully you learned a lot of really useful tricks. Carrie, did you learn anything?
I definitely learned a ton.
You're going to go back to Mountain View and write your first app
Yeah,
script?
this will be great for all of my personal training on AppScript.
That's right.
I love keyboard shortcuts.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's for Kalyan only. But yeah, so we hope that you've learned more tricks around how you can be more productive and use some of the features that we've had in the product, for some that we released this year, some that's been around for a while. And we hope to keep improving this experience. Let us know your feedback, and thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.